Welcome, everyone. My name is Jamil Matafari. I serve as the League's policy specialist. Thank you for joining us today for our second Field Notes Cycling Education webinar, How to Get a K-12 Cycling Program Started. Before we get to the conversation, I invite you all to join us in advocating for the Biking Instruction, Knowledge, and Education Act, or the Bike Act, by emailing your representatives in Congress and asking them to co-sponsor this important legislation. The Bike Act would help enable on-bike education programs in elementary and secondary schools by explicitly stating cycling education programs are eligible for grant funding through Section 405 of the State Highway Safety Program. This specific program was created to fund education initiatives to help reduce deaths and injuries resulting from traffic crashes. Click the link in the chat to learn more and take action to support cycling education in schools. Today, we have an outstanding panel of cycling education experts who will briefly present on their school-based cycling programs before we jump into moderated questions and then questions from you all. So if you have questions for the panelists, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. It is my hope you walk away from this webinar with an improved understanding and maybe some next steps on how to start a school-based cycling education program in your community. Now let's jump into introductions. I'll kick things off and then pass it to my panelists. Could you please share your name, pronouns, role, and organization, along with where you're calling from? So hi, everyone. My name is Jamil Manfari. As you see their pronouns. As I said, I'm the policy specialist here at the League, and I reside in Bella Vista, Arkansas. I'll pass it to Laura.
My name is Laura Fox. I'm the Director of Education at BikeWalk KC. My pronouns are she, her, and our headquarters are in Kansas City, Missouri.
Hi, I'm Natasha Smith, she, her, and I'm with BikeWalkBG, that's in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'm a coordinator, and I think that's all I got.
Hello, my name is Donny Green, he, him. I am the program director for the Watershed bicycle programs at the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council here in Providence, Rhode Island.
Hi, I'm Miriam Kenyon, Director of Health and Physical Education at DC Public Schools. My pronouns are she, her. I think I covered it all. Oh,
Yes.
Washington, DC, so DC Public Schools.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm super excited for this conversation. And so now that we've gone through introductions, let's jump into presentations. Laura, take it away.
So my organization is called BikeWalk KC, and our Safe Routes to School programs were kicked off in 2012. We had one borrowed bike fleet and only 1 or 2 instructors. Now we've got a comprehensive suite of programs, 11 paid instructors, and 150 bicycles in our youth fleet. We serve students on both sides of the Kansas and Missouri state lines. Bicycle lessons and safety training program is our most popular offering. We also shortcut it and call it BLAST. This can be scaled to almost any age and skill level. We liken this curriculum to a pre-driver's ed program. When we decided to expand programming to 3rd graders, we noticed the need to focus more on bike handling skills with the younger students. My instructors still cover the rules of the road, but the emphasis is confidently control the bicycles. Our Maintain Your Ride program. We prioritize serving students in disinvested communities and the need to supplement the BLAST training with a program that provides the opportunity to earn a bike is in high demand. Maintain Your Ride is usually an after-school program with smaller group of students so they can receive individual training, and bicycles are primarily sourced from community donations. Our Bike Club is our high school program that combines BLAST and Maintain Your Ride elements with weekly group rides. When appropriate, we try to incorporate an invitation to decision makers such as city council members, school board members, and other VIPs to ride with the students to experience the challenges they face when actively transporting themselves through their communities. And our last program is our pedestrian safety training. This program includes short walking field trips to explore the infrastructure around schools. We teach students to name the parts of the street, model good walking behavior, and identify where it's safest to cross streets and intersections. Sorry, I don't have a good closing. Those are BikeWalk KC's programs.
All good. Natasha.
All right, trying to get mine going here. All right, I think we're there. So BikeWalkBG, our bicycle education program, just got started this spring. We figured out step one is herding cats. And way to success on that is to divide and conquer. Our inspiration for our program, we just had some team brainstorming on outreach ideas to get further into the community. We figured kids are a gateway to the parents. We get a good captive audience, a greater impact with the schools because we just reach a greater number of people than with our individual community events. And then this way we're able to incorporate healthy lifestyles along with the bike safety and bike handling. And then we look to existing curricula such as Wisconsin's. And there's a Norton Children's Hospital program here in Kentucky that has a traveling program that we also looked at. Partners in BikeWalkBG, we have 2 staff that it's just a portion of our jobs. We try to keep 1 intern. And then as we get shorthanded, we look to additional staff here in our office. Our county parks and rec department, they're already heavily involved in bicycle programs and lots of other pop-up events. Our lead contact with them is an avid cyclist and a bike mechanic, which is a huge help. With him, there's 1 other employee that helps us. Then our health department to conduct our healthy lifestyles component. They have 2 employees who alternate programs with us. And then community volunteers, which doing daytime weekdays is really hard to find those volunteers. Funding sources for us, the Paul and I Memorial Education Grants, which are administered by the Kentucky Bicycle and Bikeway Commission, with revenue from sales of the Share the Road license plates. When our program, just in general, first got started, our mobile bike program was funded through one of these grants. We got a box trailer and repair tools. We've been getting subsequent Paul and I awards to purchase other equipment like traffic cones, signs, sidewalk chalk. And then we've used some local smaller grants to purchase bicycles and helmets just each year as we're able. We decided to open up our program to all city and county public schools, 4th grade classes. As we go to the schools, we recommend that they let kids bring their own bikes and helmets, both for an increased comfort level and it helps reduce our equipment needs. Each session is a PE class that's 45 minutes, so we usually have 25 to 28 students. We'll divide them into 2 to 4 groups for round robin stations. Stations include helmet fitting, ABC checks, hand signals, the health component, and the bike rodeo. And then we send home participants with a swag bag of goodies and some informational handouts, which we hope are going to be shared with their parents. Challenges, determining best contacts and establishing communication that varied by the schools for us, from family resource coordinators to PE teachers, principals, just depended on who was most interested in our services. And we have separate city and county school systems. Then convincing the schools to let us set up a single day for back-to-back classes rather than setting up at the regularly scheduled PE times, which could mean 3 or 4 trips per school. Coordinating the schedules with staff from our 3 agencies, the school programming, and the volunteers. And then our attorney suggested, or actually said that we should get waivers signed by all participants, which means we have to get those out in the hands of the schools, get them signed and returned, and back to us for kids to participate. And then we are trying to document success with before and after questionnaires, which we hope will help with future funding sources. Outcomes for us, so far, we're thinking happy kids plus more confident kids plus safer kids is going to be more people on bikes. And that's it.
I'm up next year if I can get the share screen thing going. Oh, great. All right. So again, my name is Donny Green, the director of the Watershed Bicycle Program at the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council in Providence, Rhode Island. We run a number of programs here. The one we're going to talk most about is our Road to Bicycle Safety, which is our in-school bike program, but we also run a high school internship program for bike mechanics. which ends up being full day classes for these students and our summer camp programs. But again, please let me go through. There we go. What we're talking about today is our Road to Bicycle Safety Program, which is an in-school on-bike program for fifth graders in the state of Rhode Island. What we're seeing here is just the early article from our launch in 2019. We launched Road to Bicycle Safety in partnership with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. During that year, that fall, actually, we worked with 4 schools, and at that point, we were actually working with 4th and 5th graders. At this point now, we've decided to pick one grade and stick with it. I have multiple reasons for it, and I'm sure we can get to it later on. But as you would guess, like 2020 kind of put a halt on things, but then we continued again going into 2021. So the way our program works, just really briefly, is it's free to participating schools. We provide all the equipment, right? So we're showing up with a box truck with roughly 50 bikes because we need different sizes to work with a general class size of 25 to 30 kids per 5th grade class. That also means we're bringing, at the very minimum, 2 instructors who are trained LCIs to also go through these classes, along with all the markings and cones to make our roadways that we need in their school playground, usually our parking lot. And then also with that, every student will receive a helmet that they get on the first day, and we'll go home with them when we're complete, which we can go through. I probably have more helmets than I have more helmets than any one bike shop in New England at any one time. And so our program and curriculum is broken down into 4 days. And that means it's 4 40 to 45-minute sessions with a specific 5th grade. We'll work with every 5th grade at each school we go to. Our first day is in classroom, where we'll start with a pre-evaluation or a pre-test. We don't call that because we're not grading the children, but that's helping us for data collection. And then that'll help guide our rules of the road discussion and how to be safe and predictable riders. And then getting into helmet fit as we hand out those helmets on the first day. Day 2 through 4, we are then outside on bike. Obviously, weather permitting. I'm sure we all might have some of those issues with when it rains. How do we get our program done? I'm sure we're all creative with that. But we'll cover many of the things we know if we're familiar with sort of LCI coverage of smart cycling. Everything from safe stopping and starting, scanning, maintaining a straight line, where to place yourself in the road, your hand signals to be predictable, and then putting everything together while learning the skills of like right-of-way rules within intersections, and then putting that together on the course for the last day for a fun ride where they actually get to really demonstrate without us dictating almost everything they do. And this just will demonstrate kind of our growth. So if we're looking at our last full school year from 2023-24 school year, we now work with 20 schools a year. And that means we're working with over 1,200 students, 5th graders, any given school year. We're almost at capacity with our staffing and fleet, and we do have to stop at a certain point. We do, if you believe it or not, have winter in Rhode Island. Makes it a little hard for a few of those winter months, but we run our programs usually up until around Thanksgiving and then start again late March. And again, right, we're running this with a staff of 2 to 3, which is funny because today a lot of my day is spent trying to find that 3rd person as we're expanding to hire one more full-time instructor. And that is what I have.
All right, just making sure everybody can see my screen. My bike program is part of our larger program in our education system, so DC Public Schools. It's called Biking in the Park. It's part of a cornerstone, and the cornerstones are units of study that a student experiences across a grade level. So for physical education in 2nd grade, every student engages in this unit of study called Biking in the Park. And what sort of prompted this is a couple of different things. I grew up riding a bike all over DC, and I got an email from, at that time, someone named Daniel Hoagland, who worked for Washington Area Bicyclists Association, and he was bringing, the bike rodeos to schools. And he said that he was spending a lot of time teaching kids how to ride a bike and not enough time, actually getting to practice in the rodeos and doing the bike safety. And then they were as old as fifth grade. So that was sort of troubling to me. And so I thought second grade will be a great grade where some students have already learned and then some students will learn. What does it consist of? Each year we train physical education teachers. So this is taught solely in our physical education class by physical education teachers. They get a training as new teachers come in, because of course there's some turnover. They also get trained and more in depth. We have toolkits that are given for each set. So all of our schools, so half of our schools have a full set of bikes. So that's 1,000 bikes in our fleet. But half of our elementary schools with second grade, which is about almost 40, have bikes in the school for a semester, and then we move the bikes. It consists of 6 lessons. So in the physical education class, we begin with, helmet, push, push, glide, the balancing first, and then, set up different sort of bike rodeos or obstacle courses. And then we culminate it with a 5 to 7 mile bike ride from their school to a nearby park. So students participate in this. We've partnered with the Department of Transportation, Safe Routes to School, and we have a little YouTube link there. Some of the successes, we've seen a lot of support across the board from parents who just look forward to their child participating. MPD, the bike police, support our rides. Sometimes our schools are in neighborhoods where the teacher doesn't feel, safe. We have people who aren't, good drivers in that area maybe. So they support the ride by helping escort that. The fleet of bikes, when we originally purchased them, they were purchased half by Safe Routes, Department of Transportation, Safe Routes to School, and half with a local grant that we received in the Bloomberg Foundation. So that was part of DCPS's cornerstone. So that's how we got our first fleet. And then our next fleet, since we've been doing this since 2015, we have a new fleet of 1,000, which DDOT purchased. We've received interest from across the nation and have had conversation over conversation on how to, implement a program where you see all the kids. We have a success rate of, at this point, 80%. Obviously, our goal is to have 100% of students being proficient riders, but definitely each student improves as they participate through that. We also have traffic gardens as one of the, I learned about, like, we teach in the gymnasium and then it doesn't really fully prepare them for the ride. And so traffic garden is an excellent way to kind of have students practice without cars. And we have that as part of our modernization plan now. So as schools get modernized, they have a traffic garden on their playground so kids can practice their bike rides and do the lessons as well. And also as part of, since we're on the Vision Zero plan for DC, there's different grant opportunities. And so some of our local bike shops have done pop-up bike shops during the rides because kids need some fixes, or, you always have adult bikes need fixes, parents. And one of the biggest reasons we heard that students don't ride is because they think their bike is broken and they maybe just need to, get their tire fixed or something like that. We have a couple of different puzzles and challenges that we've been trying to figure out. It's varied skill level regardless of the neighborhood. So we have in DC some areas that are more affluent, some that are not, and there's no predictor that we can tell whether you're going to be good at cycling or not. They also vary by school year. So sometimes you get a second grade class that, most kids know how to ride. So it's more about teaching them the skills of how to ride in a group ride and the hand signals and the safety, and really managing their bike speed, like on hills and things like that. And sometimes none of the kids or very few kids know how to ride. So it just changes year over year. We definitely have balancing first. So we have 5 balance bikes that go with each fleet that help with students who don't know how to ride yet. It's hard to correct that training wheel lean. So it's much easier to get them balancing first. Storage is another challenge. So like I said, we leave the fleet of bikes at each school site, and they have that there for 18 weeks about, and it's their responsibility to store them. We also added in our modernization plan bike storage. So now, as schools are being modernized, and we generally have 3 to 4 schools modernized each year, if it's an elementary school. And so bike storage is part of that plan, so that schools don't have to use their stages or other areas to store the fleet of bikes. And this is just a little slide to show, that we had sort of our proficiency rate as we've gone at the end. And so some kids leave as experts and some are advanced. And overall, that's about an 80% proficiency. And I will stop sharing.
Well, thank you all so much for the great work you are doing in communities and schools. Before we get to the audience Q&A, I do have some questions for y'all. But reminder, audience, if you have questions, please use the Q&A function below so we can answer those. So for our questions, whoever wants to jump in first may. And some of y'all touched on this point, but our first question, what was the initial inspiration behind starting your school-based cycling education program, and how did you identify the need for it? Whoever wants to go, have at it.
I'll jump in first. I wasn't sure if we're going to go with our standard order. So when we're looking at that, really what I was looking at here in Rhode Island was we were just offering camps and some after-school programs, and that means we weren't reaching as many kids as I thought we could. And I also knew that the interest and draw was there, at least from the youth that we were working with, because our summer camps work in that same age range, and we obviously can't fit all the kids that we could possibly reach. And some of the kids might not even have the opportunity, right? When we're dealing like really specialty programs, even if they're subsidized and or free, you're not going to reach everyone. Parents can't get their kids there. So I figured the way to make this happen was to get into schools, because you have the real captive audience there. And if you can work with every child in a grade level, you're going to get closer to reaching everyone to get through what is fun, first off, because we're bringing bikes to school and then giving them the confidence, teaching about safety and how to get around, looking at different modes of mobility that they might not get from the rest of the world, because it's not really, as we know, the common thing they're going to talk about at the table, but then they'll bring it home with them. And so that's kind of where I came from and starting to try to find schools to work with.
Yeah, from BikeWalk KC, under one roof, we also do policy and community planning. We also run the bike share system. So education is something that supports all those different kind of avenues. And I think Natasha was the one who touched on it, saying that if you can reach the kids and get them excited, then you've got an avenue to the parents. And so through the education, it's, one of the easiest things to bring people to come and observe, to see kids riding bikes. They're all happy and smiling and whatnot. And so, again, trying to reach the greater audience through the students, but also just recognizing schools are hubs for resources, and training of life skills like bike riding really feels like a great place to be having this programming done.
I'll just jump in and say, I was presented with the, idea of like what cornerstones, what do you want to do for physical education? And so thinking about what students should leave our physical education program with, of being able to ride a bike was, really high priority. It's a big part of growing up, and we have had a bunch of infrastructure in DC so that, teaching the kids how to go around and ride in the bike lanes and things like that was just a win-win. And I would say that our physical education teachers, since I oversee them, they have to do it. But it really helps to bring some positive ways that parents can participate with kids and ways that you can bring physical education sort of out into the community. It's very visible, and it really is a source of pride in DC.
So for us in Bowling Green, I feel like we're in the middle of that struggle of that whole cycle of we want more facilities, we want more bike lanes, we want more greenways for people to use, but we feel like you also have to create the demand for it. So I feel like if we can just push the cycle from every direction, the education is something to get the kids, and then by result, the parents, to create more demand for all of those facilities so we can improve those too.
Thank you all. So a big component of, being able to start educational enrichment programs, whatever those look like, in just schools in general, is funding. And so how did y'all go about securing funding for your programs? Can you walk us through the key funding sources that helped you get your in-school cycling education program started?
For us, we had a Kickstart grant from a local health foundation that allowed us to buy a bicycle fleet. At the same time, we had developed a partnership also with a local children's hospital that had their own bike fleet, so we were able to borrow from there. From here, though, we have been able to apply for federal funds, federal transportation dollars, which are distributed by our MPO. And so we have one that covers several counties in Missouri, and then we have two that cover two separate counties in Kansas. So the federal funding has been what's allowed us to have paid staff and then expand our bicycle fleets and equipment.
For us, it's still a learning point and struggle because we've had it's a program within something that's already funded at the state and local level as far as staff wise. And then us to get equipment, as I mentioned, we've had some state funded grants. But it's for us to expand and grow, we'll have to find those federal funding sources and bigger sources so that we can have paid staff and an actual program that's not us kind of juggling all of our activities.
For DC Public Schools, we work with Department of Transportation, obviously, to get the bicycles and the helmets. However, one of our most sustainable parts of it is that the physical education teacher is already there in the building, and they're the ones leading the lessons. And so providing the training for them to make sure that they, know how to lead the lessons and do that, they then become experts at sort of leading large groups. So our partnerships with other, like WABA, like Gearing Up, a local bike shop, has really been able to help make the sustainability of the human capital portion of costs, much better. If DDOT says, oh, you're going to be able to reach 4,000 second graders every year, we can, spending this amount of money on a new fleet for 5 years or 6 years is very cost effective.
Yeah, and for our program, our biggest partner for funding is Rhode Island Department of Transportation through Highway Safety HS1 grants. We've been utilizing those to fund our Road to Bicycle Safety program since its pilot. There is other, private foundations and other grants that help supplement that. But a good portion of that covers a lot of the cost of running our program. And then how that came about for us was, I mean, in a unfortunate situation, but serendipitous for what I was already looking to do, was that there was an incident where a child was hit on one of the bike paths here in Rhode Island, and inevitably died. That ride out was itself looking into doing some sort of education on bicycle safety. But that was just going to be like an assembly style video. And I sort of pushed myself into the room on the discussion because we had worked together on something else, and was able to convince them that riding safely and understanding the rules was experiential in that sense, and that we should look at getting kids on bikes. And somehow they agreed. And we've been able to utilize their funding ever since to keep expanding the program up to this day.
Thanks, y'all. Laura, I just want to pivot back. Do you know, or can you share with us the funding, the federal funding, like grants and programs that y'all are getting your funding from?
Did you say my name, Jamil? I'm sorry.
I did, yes.
So you're asking about the buckets of money where we get our grants from out of the federal transportation dollars?
Yep.
Yeah, so they can change, but like generally the congestion mitigation, the CMAQ type grants, air quality grants, those are the ones that I think primarily throughout my time here have been funding.
Excellent, thank you. And so, kind of in the same vein, partnerships are often critical to the success of new initiatives. And so we talked about this a little bit in your presentations. But who are your primary partners when launching your programs? How did you engage with them? What roles did they play in establishing your programs? That type of thing.
I'll go ahead. So with our Parks and Rec, because we do have separate city and county groups, we just happened to already be pretty heavily involved with county Parks and Rec. And because of one individual, biking was something they were very interested in. So it was very easy to partner up on that because they have a lot of leeway in their programming in Parks and Rec. And then just trying to decide how we could get into schools and what would be important. The health department was ready to jump on board so that we could include them too, because they do have a big push locally. Because I don't know if you all know this, but Kentucky is pretty unhealthy. We're pretty low on the statistics for that. So they've got a lot of initiatives to try to improve general health. So they were very happy to join up with us.
My program, looking at that, because we're a different model than DC. I feel like we're seeing two different styles of models. One's where it's like you train the educators or you bring the educators. And so for us, it's the partnerships other than, which is actually a really wonderful partnership with RIDOT. And that's how we keep rolling, is the partnerships we've made with individual schools, and then within that expanding to the school districts. And really for us, it sounds kind of wild when I think about it now, but it's us basically cold calling schools to present a program, and having those early schools, which either we had worked with through other after school programs, want to let us in, because once they see what we were delivering, they kind of spread the good news, right? We returned to every school we went to, and then just expanded either through contacts through the district or with those sort of, whatever we'd want to call them, champions within the schools to help, push along our cause.
For DCPS, we obviously partnered with Department of Transportation, Safe Routes to School, and Washington Area Bicycle Association, especially in the beginning, to develop our curriculum, to, just get some advice from different people on, the teaching components. I think, we like just, I would say random bike fans are often like the best partners. We created a volunteer list. They would volunteer on rides. They would bring like a bullet bike, where if we had a student with special needs and they couldn't ride, they could participate. So we have a lot of sort of different people who, are really just were supportive of the program and wherever. And then schools because they, do all of the work. So the teacher is doing all the work of planning their ride, and so they work within their school and connect with their parents or the, police department on bikes to help get support for the rides or putting helmets on or things like that. So each school also kind of takes ownership of their ride.
Yeah, initially, like I said, we had kind of a Kickstart grant from a local health foundation, so they were fantastic partners. Later on, in our kind of education arc, we were receiving funding from them to do adult programming too. We also partnered, like I said, with a local children's hospital. That partnership continues today and has expanded through several departments. So initially we were working with injury prevention. And then we started working with an active lifestyles division. We often work with residents, medical residents, and the research department. We do a lot with the research department. And so those were initial really great partners. But then, like Donny was saying, once you run a program, the word of mouth and the teachers spreading it to other PE teachers and whatnot, kids going home and telling their parents, hey, I learned how to ride a bike today. Those, become some partners I think that we don't often talk about either. So that's from us.
One thing I'm hearing, there's a lot of questions coming in around this, and it kind of feeds in nicely to our next question, which is around challenges. But I'm curious how, because it goes along with partnerships too, y'all are establishing communications or these partnerships with the schools you are trying to get your programs into.
I'll say that we've done a lot of what they've mentioned as far as just reaching out. We start by looking on websites for the school systems, just making cold calls, sending emails, just to anybody we think we can reach. And it's with mixed success, but a lot of that word of mouth has helped. And sometimes we just get passed off and it's a dead end.
Yeah, I could echo that. As I was saying before, like when this was starting again, after the COVID break, the amount of emails I sent out to different school districts with basically, our one sheet, to tell people what it was. And, obviously for us, it's a free program. And then you send out 50 of those, you hear back from 4 schools and you move on from there. So that was a lot of how we did it because we're not part of Rhode Island's Department of Education. We're not on the curriculum there. So it's those first like cold calls to then be able to get onto it. I know we get into our next question with there. So
Yes, to that point, Donny, like for this next question, what were some of the most significant challenges y'all faced when you were trying to set up your programs? So during implementation, and how did you overcome those obstacles?
I feel like I should keep rolling and then I'll get out of the way here. So right, those were the obstacles, right? For us, it was convincing, and just demonstrating to a school that's never seen such a program, what it is before we got on the ground, and how that it would fit within their school, and what is their core requirements and how they could implement that there, because schools are, under a lot of rules to make sure that they hit it, and something different is not easy to bring in. And that's even the challenges of how do you schedule a day, because you need to get to more schools. But if the school's like, you can only be here, these 2 PE classes for the next 4 weeks to get to our students, how will we ever reach enough students to make it actually economically feasible for us? Like all of a sudden, there's just a lot of downtime. So those were the biggest challenges for us, right? First, letting people get enough of an idea that they want to give us a try. And then also working with how we get into the schedule. And really, following up on how we got around that. It's like, once we were able to deliver, it's actually become easier and easier. My scheduling for schools that I've already been to now, I'm able, before I had to do 2 weeks at each school. But because once they see that it's easy enough to fit into schedules, I've got it down to with partner schools that we basically work on a 1 school, 1 week program and are able to move along, move our little circus along in that way. But the struggle was at first, it, like many things, it's just getting in the door. But then when you're delivering something that they see how much the students get out of it, teachers also see how well it's performed. It's been upward trajectory for us in that sense.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that there was issues trying to establish yourself as a group who could come in, bring this equipment, manage 22 kids rolling around on bikes, and not have broken arms and bruises and blood everywhere. So, but with our very first school that we had, that champion was fantastic. And he went to, like the elementary professional development day, was talking to everybody. He also took lots of pictures and video and was definitely helping to spread the word. And so then that flipped and became the challenge of trying to meet demand. So, a good problem to have, but as you're also just trying to grow your program and get the funding to support the demand, that in and of itself brings in new challenges and whatnot. And so about the time I started at BikeWalk, we were kind of really going through some big growth too, not only in our education programs, but every other team as well. And so we had a lot of growing pains in becoming more formal, throughout our policies, and how are we structuring our bike program so that there's consistency and reliability throughout those, to really get the point of safety home.
I'll just say my challenge was just sort of the reverse. I didn't start out with a pilot. I started out with all 80 schools with second grade, teaching them. So I think the best piece of advice that I got was making sure that that it's not saying, I am telling you, you have to do this, but making sure that this is sort of a we thing. This is a physical education thing, and this is your ride, your school's ride. And so making sure that the teacher has ownership of the ride, which is our culminating thing, the ownership of the learning, and then make sure that they're trained so that they're confident doing that. And then if they need any additional support, making sure that we had volunteers to help them if they're if they need helmet fitting, or if they need it for the ride, different ways that we can make sure that teachers were supported so that we knew that they would absolutely do this. And then after the first year, we started out actually with 4 lessons, and we realized that wasn't enough. And we saw some, challenges from like what we were doing and the ride, that it really wasn't, preparing them for all the different types of terrain that they would see. So we added, a couple more lessons and really worked on more opportunities for them to practice, like on down slopes and things like that, to make sure that, again, the kids would be successful on their big ride. And so those are just kind of how we overcame some of our challenges.
Natasha, do you have anything to add?
Oh, I think, I feel like I'm just still struggling with everything at this point. Cause yeah, it was a struggle to get interests, to get people to, create a demand. But like Donny was saying, we've kind of maxed out because we just don't have resources, because we're just fitting this into schedules, of all of our staff. So we want everyone to want this program, but we also have to figure out a way to deliver it.
So one last brief question from me before we get to our audience Q&A. So as you look to the future, what challenges do you face? Are there policies that you are promoting to help sustain or grow your programs, or maybe would like to create and establish to help your programs?
Oh, I would love for our program to be able to have bike education as part of the curriculum, so that we could have the PE teachers who are the ones teaching it, and we can give them the resources. Yeah, that would be my dream for our program.
Yeah, I'm right there with Natasha. I mean, we work in so many school districts, some that will never be able to prioritize the resources to be able to do the bike programming themselves. So we would love to be able to work with them. But for other school districts who are able to find those resources so that they could teach, just like Natasha says, we want to learn from our partners as much as they learn from us. And so, you know, having that variety of different community makeups, but then that champion who is working day in, day out with the students and in the community, we can learn a whole lot more about how to make a dynamic program from that. So, yeah, doing train the trainer type things is really, you know, what I would love to see happening, both across Kansas and Missouri. So
Yeah, I think I could just back that up. That would, you know, for me when I look at it, because it's not part of the curriculum within, you know, Rhode Island for education, right? That's going to always limit the ability for us to grow in long-term sustainability and the ability for us to reach, you know, the goal would be how do we reach every fifth grader? Well, not with one nonprofit organization's in-school bike program, even though we're small, there's also too many elementary schools, or however you do it, it wouldn't be possible. But then in the end, right? Ideally, would there be some sort of legislation where it becomes mandatory in schools as part of the education, but would then also change how our program works because at that point it would be training the actual teachers in school to deliver that program, and sort of shifting how that whole thing would work. And there are parts of that that I don't understand as far as equipment, how you'd be able to do that in such a broad scale. But I do think that's probably all of our sort of like North Star in some ways where we'd like to see it go. But all of us are trying in the best we can to piecemeal and reach as many students as we can with the resources and the style of school system we're working with wherever we are at the moment.
Miriam, can you, as having your program ingrained into the school system, can you kind of, we have a lot of questions on this as well, kind of speak to what your fellow panelists just brought up, as well as like just kind of giving a background to like what went into establishing this in the schools?
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, and I think a lot of people who are in my position who oversee, you know, physical education in a district, many people in this particular role don't really get to dictate what goes on in the classroom the way that I do through what is this Cornerstone program. So Cornerstones is what, you know, our district said every child across the district experiences this unit. And we did that so that there would be equity across the district and this consistency with instruction. And so I was able to put it in our curriculum through that and to ensure that all second graders are able to do that. Now, other people, you know, like my colleagues have tried to do this, but a lot of times, again, it's sort of like an opt-in. But I still think that it's a really good idea to meet with someone like that, and they know their teachers and they can invite you to, you know, do a training and things like that to train the PE teachers to help, even if it's you know, not fully there, at least having the PE teachers help participate in the teaching, you know, part of it, so that they have some you know, input, and they should be experts on, you know, teaching a large class of, again, like 25 kids, you know, and not crashing into each other and, you know, not breaking their arms and things like that. So, you know, making sure that they know how to set up a space so that they can practice and things like that. But yeah, I think DC is unique in that I can say, this is what you have to do, and they have to do it.
One last follow-up. You talked about like implementing the curriculum. Like, was that difficult? Like, what was that process like? And then also kind of like some questions around like the trainings for educators. Like, what was their response? How was it actually like setting those up in practice?
So the developing of the curriculum, we did this largely with our cornerstones. Again, so we had teachers help do this, and then we got input from Safe Route to School and Washington Area Bicycle Association. And then we also used sort of Google Maps to kind of create the ride for each school. So we did like a little bike map and found a nearby park and told teachers this was their suggested ride. And then I asked each teacher to go over their ride before ever taking a child out there, because you know, there's construction, there may be something that I can't see on a Google map. You know, I didn't go on each one of these rides. And so a teacher got back to me to say, you know, hey, you know, my ride has quite a bit of hills and I'm worried about it, but there is this bike path nearby that I would love to take my kids. And I said, you know, my question is it safe? And he said, yes. And then it was posted on Twitter at that time, and it's an off-road bike trail, and the kids were in the woods. But it was amazing. The kids had a great time, and they do that ride each time. And so it was the opportunity for him to kind of take ownership, preview that ride, make sure that it was safe. Our bikes were, you know, BMX style bikes, so they could go on that off-road. And again, the kids probably had never been in that particular park that's right there in their neighborhood. And then what was the second part of that question? Or I'm not sure if I answered it. Oh, the training.
Yep, those are the training, yeah.
Yeah, so the training, we partnered with Gearing Up, which was a bike shop because one of the challenges is like you have a fleet of bikes in your school, and there are some quick fixes that we wanted to make sure that teachers knew how to do. The second thing is like using that the curriculum to make sure that they know how to map out, for example, the different rodeos and the different obstacle courses in their gymnasium. So that they understand, like, you know, make sure that students have enough space to practice and to get some momentum so that they have some success as well. And then lastly, it's really about planning for that ride and like all of the things that, you know, we don't have waivers to participate. This is part of our physical education program. So it is a field trip form. And so it makes it sort of fairly simple that kids just kind of get that field trip because you're going off campus. And then just making sure that they have enough volunteers, enough support to take the 25 kids or so at a time.
I think we have time for one more audience question before we close out. So there might be a couple different opinions on this between y'all, but I'm curious, this question came in, how do you decide which age groups or grade levels to work with? And do you have any pros or cons of younger grades, K1 versus older elementary grades? And this is open to all of y'all.
We decided on fourth graders just based on looking at other programs and kind of personal experience of who we thought were young enough to want to pay attention to us. We thought junior high kids are maybe a little too beyond wanting to be taught in this environment. But wanted kids where at least a large number of them would already be able to ride a bicycle. And so we kind of just between personality of kids at ages and physical ability just honed in on fourth graders. And it seems to be pretty good so far in our in our one semester.
Yeah, we're close in age range. When we started, when we piloted, we tried fourth and fifth. And what I thought, I was always leaning closer toward fifth, a little bit older. I'm also thinking about hoping that some of these students will have a little bit more autonomy. It dates me a little bit to know that like I started riding my bike to school when I was in sixth grade. And then how are these ways can we teach these students who might have more ability to get themselves to places to let the bike be an option for them? And so by teaching them how to do it safely, they should be able to do it safely, and their parents might feel more comfortable after going through such a program. And then also it deals with equipment. I can't have a fleet of bikes for every age range. And though I do still carry 3 different sizes of bikes with me, one size fits most. And also, as you mentioned, being receptive. I do feel, right, middle school is made as middle school in certain ways. There might be a reason why we put all the pubescent kids in there, that they're still a little bit more receptive at fifth, before they might have also with that autonomy had a world where they might not think they need to learn as much. So I've found fifth grade to be a really great spot for a number of reasons for us to be able to deliver this and for it to be received as positively as I think it could be.
Our curriculum, when it started out, was focused on 4th and 5th grade. So again, like Natasha was saying, there's some personality differences, some skill development differences between those two groups. And then working on both sides of the state line and all these different kinds of districts, some districts would do programming up like they do school up until 6th grade. And so others would only go to 5th grade before they hit middle school. So in just kind of hearing and responding to what PE teachers wanted, the biggest thing that we heard was they wanted something for 3rd graders too. So we actually developed a secondary program. We have our BLAST program, which is for our 5th and 6th grade. We have our pre-BLAST, which is for 4th, 3rd, and 4th. So we work a little bit harder on the skill development with our 3rd and 4th, and then with the 5th graders, it was mentioned in my slide, we consider this like pre-driver's ed. So a lot of rules of the road, getting them to interact in a traffic situation, just not with real cars, but with each other on bikes. And then we integrate the middle and high school levels through our bike club programs where we sprinkle kind of a little bit of everything in there. So they're definitely learning the basic bike handling skills and rules of the road, and then putting that together on longer group rides throughout the week. So it's been a lot of trial and error is kind of what I'd say. Also responding to our PE teachers as well.
I chose 2nd grade for several reasons. One, when I was in 2nd grade, my family took a ride all the way to Harper's Ferry, so it was an 80-mile ride on our bicycles. And I felt like I never got tired. Now, this is not true for all 2nd graders, we've found out. But I also thought, you know, 2nd grade, it's not very far to fall, even though falling hurts. I wanted to make sure that that was, you know, kids get right back up. And then there was a standard in DC that spoke to being resilient. And I thought that that really sort of spoke to the essence of it, is being resilient and as a rider and doing this large 5 to 7 mile, you know, ride. I see Fanula is here in the chat. She's one of our champions who supports a lot of the work that we've done with the traffic gardens. And she's also volunteered on some rides. So nice to see her there.
Well, thank y'all so much. Like that is all. Actually, gonna have briefly before we close out, do y'all have any last advice for our audience members who are looking to start an in-school cycling program?
Oh, this isn't really advice, but I feel like it's something because we have diverse age ranges, it doesn't come up. But an added bonus I take it as in this is you're going to teach so many kids how to ride for the first time if you can set it up in that way, because no matter what grade level you go into, there are going to be students who don't know how to ride. And again, we talked about you can't predict what that skill level will be. And I would say we teach over 100 to 200 kids a year with our program how to ride for the first time because they haven't had that opportunity, but we show up at their school. It's not really advice, but keep that in mind when you're starting those. You want everyone to participate, so have a plan for everyone.
I think we talked about teaching kids how to ride, finding a way to have larger balance bikes. Because we do have kids that want to rely on the training wheels, and it's, you know, they don't want to do anything but that, even if they're pretty big kids. So our plan next is to rig up some larger bikes so that we can use them as balance bikes.
I have a secret to that I stole from Bike New York from Rick. There are quick release flat pedals.
I found those.
And that's been a dream because you can utilize those bikes as both, and it's very quick to get those kids without tools to transition on or take them back off without too much stress.
Perfect.
They are really good.
I would just say, try to remember, you know, what it is you like about bike riding. You know, I know if you're trying to get somebody who just seems on the very verge of learning how to ride, you know, maybe you've also had a long day that you've brought with you, you know, just remember how fun it is to ride a bike. And I always impart to my instructors that I want these kids to have a positive experience on a bike, not feel forced or that there is necessarily a right or a wrong way to do it, but there's all just learning on a spectrum. And that at the very end of the day, it could be a ton of fun. But just really remember, you know, for anybody who's starting out with this, that, yeah, bike riding is fun. It can also be a very useful skill, and just keep that top of mind.
Anything before we close out, Miriam?
I mean, I would say, everybody who supports cycling, you know, they're the ones who really have made us successful and working in partnership with PE teachers. We have really enjoyed, you know, this being one of the best things about DC public schools, that being you know, a nationwide attraction. And so the kids just love it. The amount of confidence that you see when a kid gets it is something that once a teacher sees that, they're definitely going to be hooked. So
Well, thank you all so much for the wisdom that you have passed on to our audience and to each other. And for the audience, thanks for staying with us after class for a few moments. The slides, resources, and contact information of our panelists will be available on our website shortly. If you are currently involved with cycling education, please take the survey that will be dropped into the chat. We are trying to gain a better understanding of the current school-based cycling education landscape. And thank you so much for joining us. Be on the lookout for more information on the League's Ready to Ride campaign to ensure every child gains the skills and experiences the joy of freedom and freedom of cycling. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.